At this time, I'd like to call the Physical Services Committee meeting to order for October 3rd, 2022. Please call the roll.
Counselor Hill.
Here.
Counselor Burridge. Here. Counselor Walker.
Here.
Counselor Gosick.
Here.
Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of our September 19th, 2022 meeting? Counselor Burridge, Counselor Gosick.
Counselor Hill.
Yes.
Counselor Burridge.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Gosick.
Yes.
Is there any old business to come before this committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business under communication. Item number 1, the city attorney seeks favorable consideration of a request to extinguish a paper alley located behind 253 East 6th Street, between East 6th Street and East 7th Street, and Bunner Street and Hamilton Street. Councilor Carrot-Twillie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to get into a historic lesson like Councilor Gosick, but the city of Oswego is filled with old back alleys and primarily that cut through neighborhood blocks. I would surmise probably as a way to get the horses out to the street or the milk trucks down into the alleys and for deliveries. From time to time, they are located in abstracts, and in this particular case, this is between East 6th and East 7th and Bunner Street and Hamilton Street. If you look at the block, you can't detect it now, but there was an alleyway that cut through there. As best we can tell, based on deeds, it's been abandoned, but we can't, in the clerk's office, find any records of the actual abandonment. So the general city law of the state of New York allows the governing body, in this case the Common Council, to extinguish any right, title, or interest in that alley, and that's what we're looking for. This is a cleanup to help a real estate transaction proceed. So I would ask that your favorable consideration of this. I'm happy to answer any questions, but it's a pretty cut and dry. We've done this before, if you recall, a couple of years ago, I think Rhodes Street, which was off of Ohio Street. That was a similar situation. Thank you.
Great. Any questions for the city attorney? Okay. Can I have a motion, please? Councilor Walker, Councilor Gosick.
Counselor Hill.
Yes.
Counselor Burridge.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Gosick.
Yes.
Item number 2, the Office of Economic Development has received a request for use of public space for the Ritz Kids Crush Cancer 5K Run Walk to be held on Saturday, October 22nd, 2022. Any questions from the council on this event? Okay. Could I have a motion, please? Councilor Burridge, Councilor Gosick.
Counselor Hill.
Yes.
Counselor Burridge.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Gosick.
Yes.
Any other business to come before this committee? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Councilor Walker, Councilor Burridge.
Counselor Hill.
Yes.
Counselor Burridge.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Gosick.
Yes.
At this time, I'd like to open the Administrative Services Committee meeting. Please call the roll.
Counselor Cordino.
Here.
Counselor McBurney. Here. Counselor Hill.
Here.
Counselor Plunkett.
Here.
Counselor Burridge.
Here.
I'd like a motion to approve the minutes of the September 19th, 2022 committee meeting. Counselor Plunkett, Counselor McBurney.
Counselor Cordino.
Yes.
Counselor McBurney.
Yes.
Counselor Hill.
Yes.
Counselor Plunkett.
Yes.
Counselor Burridge.
Yes.
Is there any old business? Seeing none. Item number 1, under communication, Mayor William J. Barlow Jr. requests discussion regarding the attached CNS proposal concerning the basement of the McRobey building. Mr. Mayor, is he here? I thought I saw the mayor, but guess he ducked out. Can we play some music while we're waiting? Thank you, City Attorney.
Am I up?
You're up, Mayor.
Can we move number 1 to number 4 and do 4, 2, 3, 1? I'm waiting on a text that'll be helpful for number 1, if it comes in here.
So, yeah, no problem. All right. Item number 2. Mayor William J. Barlow Jr. requests a budget amendment to the tourism contracted services account in the amount of $4,050 for for the Lighthouse Tours hosted by H. Lee White Museum.
Similar to what we did last year, we had a free lighthouse tour weekend where we partnered with the H. Lee White Maritime Museum. They do the lighthouse tours, and we bought a bunch of spots for that. I think it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They gave us the discounted rate instead of $30, $20, and those lighthouse tours sold out relatively quickly. So it's always a fun event and a great opportunity for people who haven't been out there to get out there and not have to worry about costs. So this is the results of that weekend, $4,050 to pay for the tours they gave.
All right, very good. Any questions from the council, for the mayor, from the public? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please? Counselor Hill, Counselor Burridge.
Counselor Cordino?
Yes.
Counselor McBurdy?
Yes.
Counselor Hill?
Yes.
Counselor Plunkett?
Yes.
Counselor Burridge?
Yes. Item number 3, Mayor William J. Barlow Jr. and Police Chief Phil Cady request a transfer of funds within the Oswego Police Department in the amount of $15,000 to cover the cost of one vehicle for the Oswego City Police Drug Task Force.
This is just what the blurb says because of the nature of it. I don't want to go into too much detail, but $15,000 to get a car for one of the units at the police department.
Understood. Any questions from the council? From the public? Can I have a motion, please? Counselor Plunkett, Counselor Hill.
Counselor Cordino?
Yes.
Counselor McBurdy?
Yes.
Counselor Hill?
Yes.
Counselor Plunkett?
Yes.
Counselor Burridge?
Yes. Item number 4, Mayor William J. Barlow Jr. requests discussion regarding the Route 48 Corridor Improvement Project. Mr. Mayor?
This is a $65,000 proposal from CNS to redesign the Route 48 corridor from Utica Street to the Y in the road. This is a project we hope to do, assuming we green light this proposal tonight, and then costs come back favorable for construction to try to revive and revitalize that area of Route 48. If you drive down there now, you've seen a lot of the buildings like the Ritz Diner, the daycare center, the Shapiro Motor site. They have been vacant, and it isn't the best part of town at the moment. So we hope to do this public project to spur some growth in that corridor, and the road certainly needs to be paved anyway. The potential funding pool for the construction of this project would be in the form of infrastructure money that the state has made available for the next 2 years, splitting up, cutting the allotment. I can't remember exactly how much the city was in for, but 50% next year and 50% the following year. So the state funds will likely pay for a large portion, if not all, of this project if we move forward. CNS, because it is a big project, is going to need quite a bit of time. So this is physical construction probably wouldn't take place till 2024.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the council? From the public? Yes, Counselor Gozick.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to mention, I'm sure you, you have similar issues down there, but I think this is gonna be great for this part of the city. When you're entering the city, so much has been done to improve the other entryways. And as a counselor for the last, 6.5, 7 years, numerous complaints about safety, so I'm really excited about the pedestrian signal improvements. I don't know if that's just, if maybe the mayor knows, but is that just for the Utica Street and where First and Utica come together, or are they looking at other possible pedestrian signal improvements?
About the pedestrian
Yeah, just for
crosswalk?
safety, we know.
This is
so
part of it, yeah.
Right,
This
so
would
that-
be in that.
And would that be just the main intersection? I was just wondering, or are they potentially looking at other spots along the corridor to have safety, like, where, well, it says in here also, I was gonna ask about this. What's that?
Erie Street.
Yeah, the Erie Street, it mentions in the, let me just find it here real quick, sorry. It mentioned here, I just wanted to make sure I understood that we're, hold on, I just gotta find it here. It mentioned that they were talking about, I can't find the exact spot, sorry. Let me just,
About Erie Street?
yeah,
the
where, oh,
mention
here it
was-
is. It's in the scope of services, and it says, CNS proposes to provide the following services. And one was perform intersection site distance analysis at the I just wasn't sure of all the wording, traffic signal warrant analysis at Erie Street. So are they, they're looking at that light there perhaps?
It's just to kind of assess if that light's really necessary. Personally, I don't think it is, and it
Yeah.
never was there when I was growing up. I think
Okay.
it got put in some time ago when the Ritz Diner was open and a lot of traffic was coming in and out. That's since closed. Anyway, no decision. We just told them to look at the traffic patterns and all the infrastructure, including the traffic lights, and get car counts, accident numbers, and to look at the lanes, the type of traffic and how many cars are going through a day, because we could come up with a median concept like we did on East First. So they're going to take a whole bunch of data before they even start a design and then present that data to us to see if, if we want to leave that light there, if it doesn't have to be, if you want to make it, just a stop sign on Erie or whatever you want to do. Same thing with the West First and Utica intersection.
Okay, good. No, that's what I was wondering. I just wasn't sure if I was clear on that. Now I understand. No, I think it's gonna be great, and improving sidewalks that are depressed. You got flooding on a lot of some of the businesses that still are there in that corridor. There's flooding on the sidewalks coming down off Ohio Street. So I think it's gonna be great, and hopefully it'll help revitalize that area and spur some investment down there.
Any other questions from the council, from the public? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please? Counselor Burge, Counselor Plunkett.
Counselor Cordino?
Yes.
Counselor McBurdy? Counselor Hill?
Yes.
Counselor Plunkett?
Yes.
Counselor Burridge?
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yeah, we'll go.
Let's go back to item number 1. Mayor William J. Barlow Jr. requests discussion regarding the attached CNS proposal concerning the basement of the McRobey Building. Mr. Mayor?
This is a $83,600 proposal, again from CNS. This is to look at the basement of the McRobey Building. I was approached by some members of the public who are here tonight and prepared to speak about relocating a fishing museum that's currently in Pulaski to Oswego. Given all the downtown revitalization work and the waterfront improvements we've done and just the density of people, it seems like a much better fit and certainly mutually beneficial to the museum and the city to bring this here. The museum folks actually identified the basement of the McRobey Building, which was appealing to me because if you've walked through there now, it's a disaster. It's where we keep a lot of the holiday decorations, and it's really kind of unfinished. So my thought was to have this design drawn up anyway, because the city really should make that a usable space on prime waterfront property. It's where the yacht club used to be. That was the text I was waiting on because I can't remember when they actually vacated and went to the building on the pier. But the way I see it is we'll hope this museum develops and works out and relocates here. And if for some reason that doesn't happen, at least we'll have plans, and if we move through to construction, a finished space on the waterfront that the city can then use or lease out to another organization.
Any questions from the council for the mayor on this one? From the public? Does anybody would like to speak?
Yes, Alderman Cordino. My name is John Allen. I think I know many of you. I did a lot of work for the city at one time. I'm a lifelong Oswegonian. Now I'm a retired partner from Bond, Chinnick & King. I'm here with Mike Reardon. Mike and I, we want to provide you with the history of the Fishing Museum and why we propose it being moved to Oswego. Mike is the president of the museum and is the real force behind it. B.F. Gladding and Company was founded in about 1870. Its main product was fishing line. Its factory was located in South Oxelic, New York, which is near Cortland. The company flourished for 120 years. Our law firm had the privilege of representing Gladding Company. Over the years, the company collected many interesting, historic, and valuable fishing artifacts, anything from poles to lures to books to artwork and painting. In 1970, the company opened a formal museum to display its collection for the public to enjoy. Unfortunately, the company's success came to an end in 1987 when it went bankrupt. The museum was closed and its collection was moved to storage in Martha's Vineyard, where the company's last president, Gerald Mayer, resided. In 1991, the collection was about to be sold to pay for unpaid storage charges. The bill was several $1,000s. Our firm had just opened a branch office in Oswego. When I learned of the impending sale of the museum's artifacts, I suggested that money be raised to pay the storage bill and move the collection to Oswego. We worked with the Heritage Foundation and the Chamber of Commerce to do this. Once moved to Oswego, the collection was placed in storage while we looked for a location for the museum. In 2001, an opportunity was presented by Niagara Mohawk to expand its visitor center, located about 5 miles south on Route 13 outside of Pulaski, New York. Niagara Mohawk built an addition to the visitor center to house the museum. A new not-for-profit corporation was established with the visitor center to house the museum. With the visitor center was there, it was occupied by the Pulaski Chamber of Commerce, and this was how the museum and its artifacts were going to be displayed. As my colleague, Kevin Caracoli, will tell you, with respect to real estate, there are only 3 things that matter: location, location, and location. Unfortunately, the Pulaski location has not worked. It was too remote to generate sufficient interest and support, and the museum was in danger of closing. In October of 2021, Mike Reardon wrote about this situation in an article published in several papers in Oswego County, asking for help to save the museum and its collection. I read the article and contacted Mike because I did not want to see the museum and its many artifacts, valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars, to leave Oswego County and to be dispersed. The bottom line is a new location is needed for the museum to be saved. The city of Oswego has done a tremendous job developing Wright's Landing and Brightbeck Park, and has really become a world-class recreation venue for everyone to enjoy. This led us to approach Mayor Barlow about moving the museum to the basement of the McRobey building. The museum, we believe, will provide another great reason for people to visit Wright's Landing and Brightbeck Park in Oswego, New York. The museum is and would continue to be more than just a collection of artifacts. Its focus has always been on education, including an active Learn to Fish program for kids. The McRobey building, located on the water, could not be a better place for that. Our vision for a newly located museum would be to continue to expand the educational programs developed by Mike. At this time, I want to introduce Mike, who has brought several artifacts from the collection, who will tell you more about the museum and the program it sponsors. Thank you. Mike?
Well, thank you very much. And it's been a privilege and a pleasure. I've worked for Usherwood Office Technology, started here in Oswego. I did a lot of service work in the McRobey building as it was developing and maturing. And I do find Oswego as my second home. I live in Central Square, New York, and I brought with me my mother, as well as you know, John and his wife, Ann. And we are just excited amongst what we've been through, which has been a very difficult last 3 to 5 years. COVID shut us down amongst everything else, and the only revenue that we receive is through tours. So you can imagine what our income has been for the last couple of years. We attempted last year to open, and there was not a lot of interest in coming indoors. And so we had 2 tough years, and that's when I approached the Oswego County Weeklies, because I believe that if this community is interested, especially Pulaski, they would let us know. So I've given you some information, and as I indicated, it's almost a year to the date that I pleaded with Oswego County to help me save the museum. Ironically, No one from Pulaski stepped up, including all the 56 businesses that I approached, and it was really defeating until John sent me a letter. Now, what you don't know is, when I wrote the book about the Gladding Company and I read this history, I had no clue who John was until he introduced himself in a letter with a donation saying, "This can't close." I also received another letter from a husband and wife who live in Oswego that said, "We're not interested in fishing, but we would hate to see something that was educational for kids to close." 3 other people from Oswego donated to the fishing museum. No one from Pulaski, no one from Altmar, which is really defeating because I've been there for 15 years, really trying to get their attention. So we came across, obviously, John a year ago in October. He wrote me and I said, "John," I said, "we've got about a year's worth of income before we have to look for a new home for the museum. We do have a building that we're gonna liquidate, and we're gonna bring those assets into this museum to continue. But what we have for you," and John's really, he's hit it all. This was the collection that was noted on the floor of the U.S. Congress. I've given you a copy. On the floor of our U.S. Congress, this collection, not the building, please understand, the building in South Otsego was just a building, but the collection that was given is still the same collection that I'm really the responsible party for. And I really, when I saw it came from Oswego, I said, you know, it should come back to Oswego. I knew some of the boards of directors that brought it here, and I didn't even know them personally as people that I interacted with. Alcan Aluminum, Niagara Mohawk Power Corporation, I was their service tech, and I knew these people that were the ones that raised $5,000 to bring it here. And unfortunately, we struggled. They struggled. Penfield Library had it for 20 years, Hammermill. It's been sitting, really, it's spent as much time in warehouses in Oswego County, here, I mean in Oswego, than it has up at Pulaski being shown. Since then, though, when I joined the museum, I was teaching kids about fishing, and this is what John indicated. I love teaching kids about fishing. I have a great connection with the DEC. I've been teaching fishing programs for the last, well, now 18 years. A little bit of credentials. The Post Standard made me a hero of conservation because of the work that I do with kids and families, teaching them about the sport of fishing. And that was quite an honor. It wasn't something I was looking forward to, but it was something that the Post Standard happened to see, because at the time, I had taught 1,500 kids to teach them the basics of fishing. I believe it's a sport that if we don't really put some action to with the younger generation, it's skipped. My son, the millennials, their parents, if they didn't teach them, they're not going to get it. And so I believe that it's one of my responsibilities to try to help introduce the younger generation today. A lot of single moms out there, they have no clue what to do with a fishing pole. We believe we can do that right from the McRobey building. In fact, I happened to take some time to read the plaque in front of the McRobey building, and it brought me to tears to hear about how Mr. McRobey loved kids. And I said to John and Evelyn, I go, this is like coming home. The building was designed because the man that gave it to it, or his name was on it, he loved children. And I appreciate that, and I commit that. The collection is a backdrop. A lot of people will see it and they'll go, yeah, it's okay, but it is very unique. We have a collection. The rod that I have has been dated to be part of the King of England's collection. I have a fishing rod from Mr. Ritz from the Ritz-Carlton. We've got artwork, hundreds of artwork, original paintings from a man by the name of Maynard Reese, who was well known for his birds. But he was contracted to do outdoor life and sports and fields, to do the artwork for the cover. And so we have about 60 of these original paintings made by Mr. Maynard Reese. And he's known for his birds, his ducks, but his waterfowl. But this particular portrait it's original, and we have a lot of that kind of things. They were all donated to Gladding because they saw the value of preservation. John indicated that my responsibility and my heartbeat has been, just like Mr. Mayor, who John helped get the collection to the next space, was my burden of what am I going to do with this collection? I'm not able to sell it. It's not mine. It's public domain, and it can't be sold. And John said, Mike, maybe we can relocate it. And so that's the reason we're here today. I've given you all the information, I think too much probably, but we are excited to see the opportunities that can come to Oswego. That harbor is breathtaking. Our front is right in front of all the harbor. We can take the kids fishing down to the dock. I have put a pond on our property to put bass in it. We got Lake Ontario here. In addition to that, we can use Brightback Park for our outdoor activities. The other reason why the McRobey building, I just fell in love with it, was the upstairs conference area. It would be right upstairs. You don't know how many times I had to put up tents in the rainy weather in this fall because we wanted to do activities outdoors. See, we can bring live fish, we can do fishing educations, we can do fishing seminars, we can literally do fishing shows, get collectors here, get our charter boat people involved. It's really limitless. That building is such a great utility, and I would love to be able to utilize it for the fishing museum and for fishing education. The last thing is, I am so excited about the fact that we have people here in Oswego that are interested. And I can't wait to tap the resources of some of the people I've already heard, some of the fishing organizations. Maybe they can partner with us. And we are welcome to whatever you folks have in mind too for it, because this is not my museum, it's our museum. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody from the council have any questions from the public? I guess I have a couple questions, if you don't mind. Step right up. You do know that the city of Oswego in this area could be a potential marine sanctuary?
I've heard.
Yeah, I'm sure it's common knowledge, and that decision, I guess, is going to be forthcoming soon. Do you see that as a potential site for this museum?
I didn't bring up the fact that I have 2 commercial aquarium systems that will hold about 1,000 gallons of water for water species. And my love is not just about fishing, but about what goes on under the water. I'm a member of the United Lake Association. I follow Cornell Institute very closely with what's happening with the ecology and water. And so when John brought that up, I go, I don't think we have the space, but it's a start. But yes, absolutely. I have heard about it. I'm not part of it, but I live in Central Square, so my influence has been in Ida Lake. But I spend my falls and my summers in Pulaski trying to keep the museum going. But yes, I would love to partner with some of that. I think it dovetails very nicely to what we're doing as far as fishing education, ecology, and the preservation side of it. I think it dovetails pretty good with ours.
Because part of that whole program is that there is going to be some type of structure built.
Yeah.
We're hoping it is in Oswego.
Yeah.
It could be Pulaski, it could be anywhere along that corridor, along the lakeshore. But Oswego hopefully will be the beneficiary of that. But the other question I had was, I mean, you pointed out the McRobey building, from your standpoint, was a nice, good fit. But from my point of view, when I hear museum, it doesn't really lend itself really too well when you're in a basement of a building that you can't see that access point from the Lake Street. So how does that fit in, the museum in the basement?
It's a great question, and it's why we brought C&E to take a look at it, because we wanted their professional opinion. You folks obviously used them. I've heard their name twice here. They came, they looked at what they had, and they felt that it could do well. Our square footage of the museum is about the same as what's in the basement of the McRobey building. Now, yes, it does seem like, well, how do you get there, right? Well, it's handicap wheelchair access, believe it or not. All it needs is a sidewalk with some signage. I think that, and John, if you would like to add to it.
Just add, we really think that because of the west side access, that right now you just got a couple of dumpsters, there's a building, and, it's sort of a collection point for stuff. With that, dialed up a little bit and with some signage, it actually will get people, going towards the back of the building And it's got a beautiful deck there that overlooks, Rice Landing and obviously the harbor. And we really actually think this is an advantage because one of the things always is you need the handicap access. And the nice thing about the way that driveway is that goes to the back of the building, it's all flat. And you can actually be able to drive right up to where there's a rear deck there. And, it's a space that has immense potential. I mean, one of the great advantages of it is that because it was part of the Naval Reserve at one time, there is a bathroom downstairs, okay? Because otherwise, if you try to have access through the building, there's a narrow attic stairway that goes up. But this way, you have a clean access, and we'd have to have some signage out, towards Lake Street. But we think that it would be, we think that we can get the attention of the people that would use it. And once the word is out, especially because this is not just going to be artifacts, it's going to be a lot of programming for people that are interested in fishing themselves or invasive species or the NOAA activities. We've got a lot of ideas about who to partner with in the city, whether it's the biology department of the college, whether it's the Sea Grant people. It's we're right in the middle of things there.
Yeah, I had approached Oswego State multiple times, and they said, it's just so hard for us to get the students to Pulaski. Because we were gonna do something with the pond, make it an ecology type of thing, and I had several students sign up for it, and then when they found out it was Pulaski, they had a hard time with transportation getting back and forth. The one thing that John mentioned, and it's really important, parking at Breitbach Park, when you park your car, you face the entrance to the museum. So it's not, yes, the main street is it's kind of a hidden thing, but when you park in the Breitbach Park, the cars face right towards would be the entrance of the museum. And again, I think proper signage, again, some advertisement, some marketing, letting people know that we're here, all the above. Thank you for your questions. Anything else? I'd be glad to answer. I know it's a lot to swallow because obviously it's kind of been a big surprise, but we are ready to begin to move as soon as we can. I'm prepared to bring the collection to Oswego. We think it's the right thing to do, and we're just looking for your support.
Well, at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, it's, we're discussing paying for CNS to do an analysis of the basement.
Correct.
There is no agreement between your organization and the city of Oswego. There's not a handshake. There's no deal in place at this point.
That is correct.
You just said you're hoping that we do follow through with this request, and then you can say, well, now that you've done the study and paid for that, we would like to be part of it and be tenants, basically. Is that what you're saying?
I'll let John.
Let's just say this, between Kevin Caracoli and I, we can put something together in writing, but you have our word. If there's any concern that after the study was done, that the fishing museum wouldn't choose to locate in Oswego, let me rest your mind, put your mind at ease. This is originally back in the early 1990s, when I proposed acquiring the museum assets, I had hoped that it would be in Oswego, because I thought it would be good for the community, and it was something that was interesting. It's again, the way things broke, the last opportunity, for 20 years, we tried it there. In Oswego, I think, and especially with what's happened at Breitbach and Rice Landing, it's just like the success builds on each other. It's really going to be, I think, a great attraction and useful not only to people who live here, but it'll get people from outside of the community too.
All right, thank you, John. Any other questions from counselors? Counselor Gozick?
Yeah, I was just perusing, your congressional, are all these artifacts that are mentioned, actually, is this collection completely intact?
Some of them are sitting right here on the table.
No, I'm just wondering, maybe you mentioned things like, you know, where there could be bigger interest, I mean, to people that enjoy history, but, it mentions like the, where is it, a fishing pole that has like the wood from the original steamboat, Robert Fulton's steamboat, the Claremont, and a table that was owned by, the prominent, Massachusetts politician, or excuse me, a Kentucky politician, Henry Clay, or whatever. Are these things still all there? The library of books from like medieval times? Okay.
The one, I will say this to be fair, because a lot of people ask this question. I would say 96% of the collection is there. Unfortunately, while it was stored at Penfield Library, some people helped themselves to several items, which I have not been able to track down. One was a very large fishing reel that caught the world's record swordfish. I have the rod, but I do not have the reel any longer. And a clock, a 150-year clock that Gladdy made that disappeared as well. But for the most part, I would say 90% of the collection is here. In fact, I brought the rod that was made 1887, the Hardy rod for the King of England. It's made out of sterling silver, ebony, and lace. It's a remarkable rod. I didn't really do it justice laying there. It normally sits in a very nice display case, but for the sake of bringing it to you to show you the things of value, that rod alone, we've had someone come to us and offer us $100,000 because there's four in the world. There's four in the world.
Thank you. No, it's just impressive. I'm not a fisherman, but I know Oswego, it's a big fishing town, and I teach in Pulaski, but it is impressive. So thank you for sharing all this.
I have a question for City Attorney Caracoli. Am I, maybe I'm missing something here, but this $83,600 for CNS, that's just for their work to look at the property, look at the space, and to come up with the bid documents. It's not for construction or renovation costs at all. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
One thing, the $19,000 of it is for construction supervision.
Yes, I see that. Bidding assistance slash construction administration, $19,000. They would supervise, I assume, anybody that we hire to do the work.
But I guess what I'm saying is that's the construction phase, the study phase of it is basically 83 minus the.
Right, so I just want to make this clear, that if we approve this, $83,600, and then we follow through, then there's going to be an additional cost for the actual renovation of the space. So I just want to make that clear, that this $83,600 is just a tip of the iceberg as far as any work that we do there. Counselor Hill?
But, I mean, we should look at it, even if the museum doesn't materialize, if we have that work done already, we can use that space, which is a very valuable space on the water, for something else, if something were to happen. So that work would be done, and then we could then,
I know that.
So there's a lot of options
The mayor
and-
did say that in his opening
Yeah, so
remarks.
it's-
I understand
it's
that.
not- yeah.
I just want to make sure everybody is aware, this $83,600 doesn't get you a finished space.
I mean, we've spent, large amounts of money to light bridges and things like that. So I think it's, given all the stuff we've done, it wouldn't be a bad thing to look at that space and try to develop it one way or the other. But that's certainly up to the council to decide. And the city clerk keeps asking, let's see the fish? The furry fish?
Do you have fish? I guess we want to show and tell here.
So,
All right, so, and you gotta
Oh,
understand, you gotta
okay.
understand the background of this, okay? Those of you that are of age, do you know Tennessee Ernie Ford? You know him. He was the spokesman for the marketing campaign of the Tall Tales contest. When Gladding first opened up their museum, they wanted to create a buzz. There was no internet. There was magazines and newspapers. That's a world we haven't thought of for many, many years. What they did $30,000 worth of cash and prizes. They got one of everything that Gladding sold at the time. They were a $62 million outdoor sports and recreation company, like Cabela's or Bass Pro, before there was such a thing as a large box store. So a man submitted this particular, and he put this, which I'll read to you. I won't probably do it justice, but the fur-bearing trout is a fishy critter that lives in the high summit lakes of the never-has-been mountains, way above the timbers where the waters are ice-covered most of the year. These fish grow rare fur instead of scales because the water is sober cold. It has been said by some old-timers that the number of fishermen these fish see in a lifetime can be counted on one fin, and the number of fishermen that do catch them is even less. One of the reasons being the indecision by most fishermen to use a hook, line, and sinker or a steel trap to catch them. Swallow that. Once powder obtained, they do make exceptional trophies or pets. Also, they can help in conserving energy, as they even have a difficulty hanging on the wall above 68 degrees Fahrenheit, as they are so acclimated to coldness. They're not good eating, though. However, things do get tough, and you insist on eating this furry morsel. Here's a good recipe. First, you clean the fish, but remember, dry clean only. Then bake them on a pine board in a preheated oven, heated up at 600 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 minutes. That should do the trick. Salt and garnish, not really necessary, nor is table grace required at the meal, only the benediction. Another oddity worthy of mentioning is the wildlife biologists and ichthyologists, after years of research, have ascertained that this fish is the only fish that is a relative to a mammal. It's the third cousin to the notorious western jackalope, and not by marriage either. Now, if you don't believe this story about the fur-bearing trout, some folks actually don't, you just ain't ever gonna make it as a true teller of fishy tales. A pastor submitted that and won the contest. So this is the fur-bearing trout. It's not a true real fish, but he went to the point of not only writing a story, he actually made the notorious fur-bearing trout. So it's this kind of thing. There's history that goes behind it. And I believe, and I was telling my mother on the way here, that history isn't about a building or a place. It's about the collection and the stories that are housed in the collection. And I could go on and on for hours telling you all about it. I'll hold back on that, but if anybody wants to see me for more information, I've given you a good rundown of what to talk about. I do agree that this is a large undertaking. Believe me, I gulped when I saw the number, because I'm one of those do-it-yourself kind of guys. I saw the space down in the Proby building, I said, you know what, we can do this. And Mayor Barlow said, I think we ought to have some engineers look at it. I said, okay. And so they came back to us, but we're prepared to help in whatever way we can with my staff and helpers to make this go. Although, as properly said, this is your building. It will not be our building. We will be a tenant in your building. So what you do with it, it's yours to keep, and we would be obviously the beneficiaries of being able to bring people to see what you've done. Okay?
All right, thank you. Is there somebody here in the public that'd like to speak?
I think it's a lovely idea to bring this to one and self-sustaining. And while we're talking about the cost of the renovations, the deck that was mentioned has got to be 30-plus years old. And I think something similar came up when the yacht club was over there, that they wanted the city to build a deck for them and pay for it because it wasn't actually the yacht club's. It belonged to the city and the building. And would you be willing to do that as well? I mean, it sounds like it would be a big part of the whole venue and whatever. And with the cost of building materials and things right now, I think the price tag is going to be pretty big.
All right, thank you. Anybody else want to chime in here? Oh, Counselor Gozick.
No, I would just say, again, made reference to the building, but it is, I mean, the building's a composite. You can go back to, it was originally built as the yacht club, the central part of the building. The wings were added on after World War II for the Korean War, if I'm not mistaken. But if you go back, you know, it is, I just think also when you look at the history of the building, to consider the, like Counselor Hill said, to be able to utilize that space, unless there's some plan to get rid of it and build like waterfront condos or like something up there, amusement park that I don't know about. You know, I think it's something we really need to think about a lot with the world-class, collection you have. Incredible. Didn't know what to think until you told me about it. It is impressive. I mean, but at the same time, the building's significant as well, and it is in a very important location with all the revitalization, so I guess we got a tough decision to make coming up.
Thank you, Counselor. Anybody else? I'd like yes, Counselor Burge.
I think this is a great opportunity, but I have a ton of questions, like who's gonna be manning it? Who's gonna be taking care of the security of this? I see it kind of like a first step, but we're taking a first step before we looked at the whole entire picture. I think there's a lot of questions. Who's gonna take care of this? Who's gonna be manning it? Are we gonna be taking that task on ourselves? Is it gonna be extra money for us? Sure, that building's, it's definitely a gold mine, but I think what we're looking at right now, there's a ton of questions that haven't been answered and what direction we're gonna go in. I'm not saying it should be by any means a dead horse, but I think I have a ton of questions and we need some sort of a plan before we can continue on with just saying yes and spend $83,000 and having people go down there and take a look at it and say, yeah, we can do this. We already know we can do that. I think, you know, we gotta have a plan to do that, but I think there's a lot more to it than just saying, yep, there's a lot. I have a ton of questions, to be honest with you, and I don't think we have any of the answers here tonight.
All right. Yeah, well, let me have a couple counselors, and then you.
I think it's really the context of the
Counselor
discussion.
McBurney, can I have Counselor McBurney?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that Kevin spoke to this a little earlier. The $83,000 gets us a starting point to have conversations about, like, what can we do in this space? What are the possibilities? And then the conversation with the museum about the tenancy and the terms of the contract for the rental or the occupation is something different, separate from that. You know what I mean? There are two. The one allows us to actually start a conversation about what funds we need to raise, where we can raise them from.
Counselor Hill.
I think it's about the context of the discussion. If the mayor had stood before us and said, we have this gorgeous space, we want to market it, we've put $20 million into our waterfront, this is the next logical place we want to look to develop, we can get a plan together, $83,000, we'd look at it totally different. I think what we're doing is we're focusing too much on that step which is not established. There's no connection between the two, between that museum and that location. We need to invest in this building, or, like John said, raise it. I mean, what's the point? If we're just gonna let it fall apart, we're not gonna utilize it. This gives us the foundation for actually utilizing that space, prime on the waterfront, and not to marginalize or minimize their participation. It's more for us to take that step to utilize that space. So we're getting too caught up in the minutia of the detail of where it could go, but they're not a tenant, nor are we signing any agreements or making any, we're not saying that we're going to let them rent it. So, but in order to even get to the point where we can put a tenant in there, we have to, look at the space, develop the space, come up with a plan. We've done this 100 times for different things in the city. We've spent, millions of dollars on projects like this. So it seems odd to me that we're gonna sit here and say, well, this one is the one where we're gonna draw the line. Really? I mean, that's one of our prime buildings, prime location, nicest spots in the city. And John said the collection's great, and you know what? They could make a great tenant, but if we get to the point where the space is developed and we're ready to put someone in there and they don't check the boxes, no security, no staffing, no long-term funding, sustainability, things like that, we have the choice to say, sorry, we're gonna look elsewhere. But in order for us to even get to the point where we can look at putting people in there, we need to start the process. So this is just a starting point. And I think it's all about context. If we didn't have the presentation on the museum, we wouldn't be caught up in thinking that that's the end of where it's going to be. So that's all. I think it's a natural progression of where we're developing, and it's.
I agree with you 100%, Counselor. But my problem is we have people here are looking for us to put this together for them.
But
And
it's
I don't
not.
want to make
But
any.
that's, the key is it's not, and I think they understand that, correct? You understand that this is not an agreement to allow you to rent the location. This is simply the city taking the first step to look at a beautiful piece
We
of,
understand it.
of real estate and where we go from there.
What we hope that is, I just want to make it clear, we want to be your partners.
Right, sure.
We want to help you. And some of these details, and they're very good ones, I mean, we're not expecting that the city is all of a sudden going to be in the museum business. You know, the museum itself will have its volunteers, it will have its curators, it will have its docents, it'll have a Simply Safe or something like that for an alarm system. It was probably 40 years ago when this building was being remodeled. And I remember having a trial in city court. And because the building was being remodeled, I tried the case over in Provian, okay? And I just gotta tell you, in that 40 years, the building really hasn't had much attention, all right? And part of the cost involved here is because it was a building that was erected in 1914, there's a lot of things that have to be looked at, whether, it might be asbestos, or it might be, well, I can't even give you the list, but you can imagine because of all the projects that you've been involved in. And those things have to be reviewed, including the fact that it's an historical building, and there's certain state regulations that you have to participate in. But from, we were, Mike and I were there when the CNS architects, went through the building, very, very skilled and very decent people. But they're gonna give you a whole picture, okay, that is gonna help you in what I think, and I hope as an Oswegonian, I hope that building is preserved as public space. And it's a jewel that needs to be polished a little bit now. Yes?
You're gonna give us the whole entire building, though? You're gonna look it over and say, we can use the upstairs for this and this, or you're just gonna do the basement?
No, what they're doing is they take a scan, okay, of the basement, but they're also including the I'm gonna call it the assembly area, upstairs. But when you look at it, they have to look at the structure, because, obviously the basement supports the rest of the building. I mean, I don't think they were going to get into, the detail for the wings or anything like that. But what it does is it gives you a baseline of the foundation, okay, for, improvements to the building upstairs also.
All right, thank you. Any other? Yes, Councilor
While we're
Goza.
on the subject, I was just wondering, it's one of, obviously, looking at the building, as Mr. Allen pointed out, the original building, a minute ago I wasn't thinking, but a renowned architect from Rochester, Claude Fat Bragdon, did a lot of work at one of the Kingsford mansions. So there's great significance, especially, in the nascent stage of America today, preservation isn't our top priority. I go back to the Pataki administration when they gutted museums. I commend the Barlow administration, this council, for pumping so much money. Come on. We've restored historical society, like the roof on the Richardson Bates House. We bought the museum. This is exceptional, unusual. It's an anomaly, okay, today. I would argue across the board when the economy's bad. We had so many problems here in Oswego. We're investing though, so you gotta understand something. If we make it and we live, okay, if we go, if it's society, we just see so short term. The treasures that are here, these are things you preserve. If you go to Europe and you go to China, all over the world, they preserve buildings, not for a century or two, but for millennia. And we're talking what is gonna be left? Is there gonna be anything? Something of that stature in a city like Oswego is significant because, okay, maybe it's not 1750, but 1914 is important too. When you go back and look at the architectural style, and then you go build on. What I was gonna ask about, though I never knew, is the basement, is it just centered on the original yacht club building? Or did they actually put in a large basement for the rest of the basement go the entire? I have no conception of that. I was just wondering, could you tell me, does the basement run the entire length of the wings and the main center building?
No, the basement was, what we're talking about really is the original yacht club structure. The two wings, there's really no basement underneath.
Okay, I never been there.
About, as you say, after World War III,
I suggest, if this passes tonight, I suggest that the council take a tour between now and next Tuesday, when the final vote will be made on this, and so we know what we're talking about. I think it's incumbent upon us, who are spending the money, to find out what the space looks like and the lay of the land. So I propose that we put together a little tour of the building between now and next Tuesday. Councilor Burge.
I'd like to maybe propose we table it for a week or two till we have some more discussion on it. Personally, I think if we're gonna look at this building, then let's look at the building and doing something with it. You know, if we're just gonna do the basement, I think we're jumping the gun, making a choice with $83,000 in a quick hurry, which I have no problem if we're gonna say, hey, you know, and I think the museum's a great idea, by the way, I mean, but if we had a restaurant or something that was attached to it on the top, the museum on the bottom, something else at the top, you know, that is a huge building that we should be using. I agree. And that's where, you know, I think we could have a lot more discussion before we just jump on the bandwagon and say, let's spend $83,000 and get this thing started, without saying, hey, wait a minute, let's slow down, take a look at it, and make a choice that I think is, and I got no problem working with that building whatsoever. I've said it from day one, you know.
All right, Counselor, are you making a official proposal to table this?
I am.
Is there a second from this committee? Counselor Plunkett. We have a motion that's been seconded for tabling this motion. Can you call the roll on tabling?
Counselor Cordino?
Yes.
Counselor McBurney? No. Counselor Hill?
No.
Counselor Plunkett?
Yes.
Counselor Burridge?
Yes.
All right, the item's been tabled. Going back to the original agenda, item number 5. City Chamberlain Deborah Code requests discussion regarding the purchase of water meters. Mrs. Code? All right, thank you. Any questions for City Chamberlain? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please? Councilor McBurney, Councilor Hill.
Counselor Cordino?
Yes.
Counselor McBurney? Yes. Counselor Hill?
Yes.
Counselor Plunkett?
Yes.
Counselor Burridge?
Yes.
Any other business? Seeing none, can I have a motion to adjourn? Councilor Burridge, Councilor Plunkett.
Counselor Cordino?
Yes.
Counselor McBurney? Yes. Counselor Hill?
Yes.
Counselor Plunkett?
Yes.
Counselor Burridge?
Yes.